Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Afro Ballers. I'm your host, Chinyere Aniago, and I am so pleased to introduce my very special guest. He is a 9-year NFL baller. We are so glad to have him sit down with me today because normally he is on the field sacking quarterbacks. So, hello, Jeremiah.
Hey
How are you doing
Chinyere, I'm
today?
doing good.
That's
So
good.
it's Chinyere, right? So
Yes,
where are you from?
Aniago.
Where are you from?
Well, we're originally from Anambra State, East Nigeria. So I actually was born here in Atlanta, Georgia, but we moved back to West Africa when I was 4 years old. So I lived in West Africa from 4 to 10
Nice.
between Nigeria, Senegal, and I also lived
Wow.
in Guinea.
Mm.
So it was pretty cool. And then I've been, in the States. I lived in South America, Asia too. So it's been
So
cool.
tu parles français.
Je parle un peu de français.
Un
Un peu
peu
de
français,
français. Yo puedo
okay.
hablar español también.
Oui,
So,
oui,
a
oui.
little something.
Nice,
Yes.
nice, nice.
And what about you? Tell me about your background.
I was born in Ibadan, Nigeria, so which is in Oyo State. We're known for like the red roofs. I think third or fourth or second largest city in Nigeria. Second or maybe third after Kano and Lagos.
Okay.
So Ibadan was kind of cool. I kind of had like a middle class upbringing there. My parents, my dad worked for UNICEF, and then my mom, she went to school and she had a job too. So we were doing pretty well over there, and then we kind of assimilated. So my dad moved back to the U.S. where he had gotten his degree. So moved back to the U.S. like in the mid '90s.
Okay.
So there was a period of time where my mom and her three kids were over there, and then my dad was over here. So we had this period of like 4 to 5 years where we didn't see our dad,
Oh, wow.
and we spoke to him on the phone. And then we finally, after 3 visits to the Lagos embassy, we got our visas to come in 2001.
Okay.
So after that, moved to DC, and the rest has been history.
So good. So before we get started, I have to ask you, what does an Afro baller mean to you?
To me, an Afro baller is somebody that originates from Africa. I would like to throw my African American brothers in there because 1 in 5 Black people in the world has West African or Nigerian DNA. So definitely, it's an all encompassing group for sure.
Okay, yeah, that's so true, including myself. So, how was it moving to the U.S. at age 8? Like, how do you feel? Do you feel like football called you, or do you feel like you were supposed to play maybe soccer because that's more expected of Africans?
Coming to the U.S. as an immigrant, definitely as a kid at 8 years old it was easy because I was a little bit more pliable. So I wasn't, over 13, you still got your accent. It's a little harder to break. But at 8 years old, I moved into the inner city. So that was tough. So a lot of Nigerians, they move to the States. They might go to Houston. I moved to DC or Atlanta. So we moved right into the inner city. DC was coming out of the crack cocaine epidemic, so we were in the hood. You didn't know your neighbors. Every people steal your bikes, me mugging, fighting the school, fighting on the way back. So it was definitely a huge culture shock for me. I never knew there were Black people in America as a kid. I thought I was going to the land of white people. So DC was kind of like a culture shock in that sense, where I was able to learn about the history of Black Americans and from a different perspective.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. So you mentioned the crack epidemic, and then you also mentioned just like getting into a lot of fights. Do you think there were any things specific to being an African immigrant that might have been a little bit something that you had to overcome? And then how did playing sports help you make it out of those circumstances?
I definitely think assimilation was like the first thing. So obviously we spoke English in Nigeria. My parents were both college educated. So they always made sure they spoke English at home. So when we came to the US, we didn't have the means, we didn't have finances. So we had to go to the worst public school in DC. So obviously we were going to school with kids whose parents were locked up or were being raised by their grandparents. So there was a lot of ignorance. There were a lot of kids that wanted to fight us because we were fresh off the boat, from Africa. We didn't understand cultural norms like color themes, like boys couldn't wear pink and
Right.
you couldn't wear glitter on your jeans. And my mom would go to Salvation Army and get like, all the free
You got
stuff.
to wear this.
And we'll wear so it was all those things, contributed to us getting bullied, heavily.
Okay.
My sister, because of her hairstyles and things like that. So there were a lot of Afrocentric things. There was a lot of African hate, and that all stems from, years of, constantly
Programming.
making people feel bad for being Black. So I
Absolutely.
think me being a darker skinned, person, I felt, I felt that, that hate, and that negativity.
Wow, that's pretty deep. So, with that being said, because I know a lot of like African parents, they expect you to be, a lawyer, a doctor. They really want the best for you when you come to this country. So, how were you able to convince your parents to go an untraditional route and that sports was the way for you?
Didn't really convince them. I just kind of snuck off and, PE, recess, we do our thing. I played football growing up, which is soccer in the US. So I came over naturally. I played, club soccer and things like that. So my parents were very free spirited in that sense that they allowed us to explore our talents outside of school. And then when I got to high school, went to a new high school and I was trying to make friends. So I was trying to find where to sign up to play soccer, Archbishop Carroll High School, Washington, D.C. And I walked into the wrong room. I saw a long line of kids, got in the line, got to the front. The freshman football coach was like, nah, you're not playing soccer. You're going to play football.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So, we talked about your parents a little bit. So I know you have some siblings. So could you talk a little bit about your siblings and how they've influenced you in your decision to play professional sports?
So I have an older brother, Samuel. He's 2 years older than me, and an older sister, Glory, who's 4 years older than me. So essentially, we all moved to the U.S. at 8, 10, and 12.
Wow.
So we could all kind of confide in each other and go through that whole that process together. My sister has sickle cell disease, so it's very common in West Africa. It's a genetic mutation, so your body can fight against malaria, so you don't develop red blood cells. So a lot of people, Adekule Gold has it, T-Boz has it, so it's definitely like a plight. Mm-hmm. You get sick a lot. You might be on the road. You might have to go to the hospital, get a blood transfusion. So growing up, having to see my sister go through, those episodes and, kind of being there to take care of her really put everything in perspective and kind of humbled me to, to focus on certain things.
Wow, that's pretty deep. Yeah, I know some people that have the same sickle cell, so respect to that. So continuing, I see that you're very focused because you've played linebacker, defensive end. You've also been a running back. So what made you settle on the position of linebacker?
So, when I told you I started in high school and a very foreign sport, putting on the pads, one of my teammates had to dress me up in the locker room. I didn't know how to wear the pads. So I'm in the locker room, 9th grade, 13 years old. Like, I go out there, I'm playing receiver, run a route, and I get smacked. I fall on the ground and I'm looking at the sun like, what did I just sign up for? Like, but for me, it was just this motivation to keep going. Even though I wasn't very good, but I kept, churning and developing the physicality and kind of like the mentality to play the game, which naturally I had it. I had a fighter's will, but I just didn't know what I had to do. So defensive end made sense to me because, first of all, a lot of my favorite players in the league at the time were Nigerian. So Osi Umenyora, Matthias Kiwanuka, a lot of the guys on the defensive line for the Giants that were having success around that time, 06, 07.
Okay.
So I kind of like follow those guys. And every time I saw their names, that was inspiring to me, as an immigrant, trying to assimilate to American culture.
Okay. Wow. So you mentioned Nigerian and we know, we're the best. So what are some of the Nigerian traits that you kind of translated into playing sports that kind of helped you, push through, motivated you? What would you say?
I'll definitely say the discipline.
Okay.
The discipline, for me personally, my parents, the humility. So my parents, very humble, put your head down type people. So I never got to a point where I felt like I was the best so I always felt a need to prove myself. Hot-blooded, so, very temperamental. So a lot of West Nigerians are temperamental and hot-blooded, and it's kind of like a warrior, culture, like a gene. So when you get out there, for me, the physicality of the game didn't make sense to me until somebody hit me or I got hit.
Okay.
And then my blood gets hot. And then it's like, okay, I'm destroying anybody out here. So it's kind of like that type of gene in a way.
No, I totally get that. Right. Ooh. Okay, that was nice. Thank you. That's very interesting. So we're going to move it back. We're going to take it back. We want to take it to the Georgia Tech days because we know you played there. All-time sack leader at Georgia Tech. What attracted you to the program in the first place?
So I was in the Northeast, Washington, D.C., so I played in the Catholic Athletic Conference. So we played a bunch of Catholic schools. I remember University of Virginia was recruiting me, and the head coach at the time, Al Groh, got fired during the recruiting cycle my senior year. and got the job at Georgia Tech. So 2 weeks before signing day, I'm visiting Illinois, Kansas State, Maryland, Syracuse. And then my last visit, I get a call from Grow at Georgia Tech. He's like, hey, if you want to take your last visit here, just let me know. I just got the job. So I came down to Tech, and I didn't want to go to school in the inner city because I grew up in DC, and like that wasn't fun. But I came to Atlanta and I got on the campus, and you couldn't really tell you were in the city of Atlanta. So it was cool. I was like, okay, good academic institution. They had just won the Orange Bowl, 2 first-round picks, Demaryius Thomas, and Derek Morgan at the time. So it was like, the program was sending guys to the NFL, and the degree was like, respectable in Atlanta. So I was like, yeah, I'm good for this.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how did you manage the expectations once you got on the team, once you started showing out week to week? How did you manage those expectations of being that player?
I think I kind of embraced part of being successful in life is to embrace like how your difference and how you're being an outsider. So growing up in DC, feeling like an outsider in a 90% black city, I kind of always felt like I had to do things on my own. So when I got to Georgia Tech, I never felt the need to like socialize or do anything. It was literally football and school. Like wasn't dating, didn't have a girlfriend till like my junior year. So I was pretty much like on this grind, and like I think what motivated me was the fact that I was getting everything for free. I was on campus, and my parents didn't have to worry about anything. They broke a piggy bank to drive me from DC to go to college.
Shout out to the parents.
This is before NIL. So it's like, I was very thankful and grateful to be there, and I just wanted to make the most of the opportunity.
Wow. So how did Coach Glow, how did he influence you? Did I pronounce it?
Coach Grow.
Coach Grow. Sorry for mispronouncing his name. So I heard that he heavily influenced you to even go to Georgia Tech. So what was that like?
He definitely just, laid it out there for me, man to man. Coach Grow was a elderly white man at the time, but he definitely took a liking to me. So me and my dad, we went to visit University of Virginia in March, in the spring of like 2009. And my dad, just the most embarrassing African man ever. Like this man will walk into a room and just do him. You know what I'm saying?
No, because my dad's the most embarrassing African dad.
Then you know what I'm talking about.
What you mean.
Like
Yes.
My dad intentionally speaks in a Nigerian accent. Like he doesn't know how to pronounce Massachusetts. He's like Massachusetts. I'm like, bro,
stop it.
Yeah. So my dad is so he was kind of coming with me on a couple of trips. So we get into Coach Grow's office, and there's a statue of a eagle, a cavalier, which is an eagle, which is kind of like their mascot.
Okay.
And my dad tries to squeeze by the statue and knocks it over and breaks it. So I'm like, oh my God. Like, I'm definitely not getting a scholarship.
Okay.
And then Coach Grow was like, nah, it's okay. I'll take Jerry for the statue any day. So like, I was like, all right, I like this dude, you know? So it was that type of thing.
Okay. Yeah. Wow. That's nice. So you're showing out in college. All eyes are on you. How does it feel when you finally get that call from the NFL?
Definitely, I wouldn't say a dream come true, because I wasn't really like a heavily sports focused person. My ambitions was to join the military. Like I kind of just like discipline. Like in the inner city, when you don't have cable, you turn TV on Sunday, football comes on, and then the U.S. Marine commercial comes on right after football, because they know all the inner city kids are watching sports, and they want inner city kids to join the military too. So for me, I was like, oh, the few, the proud, the Marines. I was like, oh, I want to join the Marines. I want to shoot guns. And if it fits the bill, like football kind of was like, okay, you will get to wear a uniform. You get to be macho. And
you're kind of an extremist.
You know what I'm saying? So it was kind of like that. So, when everything started panning out, when I got to college, I didn't know it was going to be a reality for me. I wasn't one of those people you would ask, hey, well, you going to go to the league? I just never talked about it. Right. I never told anybody that was my goal, but I did work towards it. And then also my teammates started acknowledging it. So during practices, my freshman, sophomore year, there was a superlative on the team, and it was like most likely to be an NFL star. And most of the people on the team picked me. I didn't even know. I'm like 19 years old in my sophomore season. So for me, that was like the first instant where I felt like, okay, this is attainable, because my peers are like, he can do it. So,
yeah. And you did it. So that is, it's just been nice listening to your story. When it comes to linebackers, who are some of the greatest linebackers that you look up to? Like, who did you say, like, you know what, I like him. That's who I want to be like.
I grew up watching, like I said, O.C. Umenyiora, DeMarcus
Okay,
Ware,
yeah.
Matthias Kiwanuka. I loved London Fletcher. He played for the Washington Redskins. Played a long
Okay.
time. Was very durable, reliable, super humble, kept his head down type of guy. So I kind of had a vibe of guys that I liked in the NFL
Okay.
at the time. I liked other positions like Clinton Portis, running back. So it was kind of like, and then I always wanted to see I remember when Amobi Okoye was the youngest guy to get drafted. I think he was like 17 or 16 to
What?
the Houston Texans. So all those things were kind of like motivational, moments for me to really
Okay.
get to where I wanted to be.
Okay. So how was the transition from college ball to professional ball?
The transition for me was interesting because I moved from the East Coast to the West Coast. So I got drafted by the San Diego Chargers. Amazing feat for me. I love the city. I love the
I love
sunshine, the
San
weather.
Diego. I used to live there
Exactly.
too. I love San Diego.
Early
Yes.
21 years old, San
Yes.
Diego. You just got drafted, just
Life.
got a signing bonus. You know what I'm saying? Life was amazing. So the transition was pretty smooth for me. I was very very work oriented, that type of thing. So I was
Mhm.
very, focused on my craft and, I enjoyed my time there.
Okay. What were some of the lessons that you learned, like in the beginning stages as a rookie versus as a veteran?
I definitely say as a rookie, like I put a lot of trust into like the staff, the training staff, and things like that. Instead of actually like doing my research or having my own team of people that were in my best interest, because at the end of the day, those people are hired by your employees. So I think for me it was pretty much the learning curve of understanding that your body is now your job, your business. You can't put crazy things in your body. You got to stay clean. You got to
Mm,
train year round. You got to get stretching and massage and whatever
okay.
chiropractic work, whatever it is you need for your body. So, and also the mental health aspect. I didn't understand the toll that the sport was taking on me mentally,
Mm,
living your life through the lens of wins and losses and constantly being evaluated on camera can have an effect on you and, can make you anxious and things like that. So a lot of guys have dealt with it, but they don't even know they're dealing with it.
yeah, mental health is definitely a huge concern right now. So I'm glad that you touched on that. So I want to move a little bit into, you talked a lot about African players in the NFL, and, we're both African ourselves. So I wanted to ask you, how do you feel like the outreach is in the NFL to Africa? How has things changed? How do you see things growing?
I think over the years, there hasn't really been an effort. It's just recently, over the last 5 years, I see a lot of guys making strides. So OC started NFL Africa, NBA Africa is kicking off. So now we're seeing a big traction with all the influx of African talent. We're seeing guys like Pascal Siakam and all these guys in the NBA going back, starting leagues, and that's really the goal, to be able to provide opportunities to people that have the same talent code, the same genetics, give them an opportunity to explore their talents. I think ultimately for every African immigrant or first generation that came here and got the opportunity, because at the end of the day, it's all about opportunity. It's all about
Right.
time and chance. I'm not the most talented or the strongest or the fastest. I was blessed, and God put me in positions to be able to capitalize on my talent, and ultimately, that's all we can do for the next generation.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, can you give us some more concrete ways that you plan to partner with African organizations, or anything that you've launched in the past, to help that progression and give Africa that exposure that it deserves?
Currently, I'm working on a couple projects in West Africa. So right now, I have a school in Nigeria that I built and
Okay.
that opened up in 2019.
What?
So right now, we're expanding. We're first grade to 12th grade. We want to put the kids through school, sports programs, teach them skills they can use right out of high school to work, be it agriculture or artificial intelligence. And then also doing a Ghana program where I'm building a sports complex for kids to come and train, teaching them skills, agriculture skills, and other types of farming skills to be able to make a living. So there's definitely a lot of opportunity and a lot of potential, untapped potential that I'm looking to harness.
Wow. Okay, that's really amazing. That's really amazing. So we talked about, sports, we talked about Africa, but right now we know that music is blowing up. Afrobeat is one of the top international sounds, and we're all just so proud. So in reference to that, what are some of your favorite Afrobeat artists? Can you give us a few songs that you just can't live without right now?
I gotta. So I went to college in Atlanta, right?
Right.
So I remember when I came to school, my brother Sam. I came to Atlanta. I didn't like trap music, right? I like Wale. I grew up in DC.
Okay,
you get
so
my
you were
drift.
more that vibe. Okay.
J.
Okay,
Cole,
J. Cole,
you know what I'm
right.
saying? So I came to Atlanta. I'm like, man, I hate trap
What
music.
is this?
But then every Saturday in the stadium is just Gucci. Every 5 a.m.
Right.
lift, you're listening to 2 Chainz, Travis Porter,
It's
when
lit.
Migos first started. So I'm like, so my brother called me. My brother starts seeing my music interest changing because I grew up loving Afrobeat. And I
Okay.
mean real like Timaya, Two-Face.
Let me
Like
find
I go
out.
back in the
Okay.
day. Yankuli,
Right.
Yankuli. Like I used to dance to all that stuff. So I got to Atlanta and my brother is like, yo, Jerry, listen to this guy, DeVito. I'm 18 years old. He's like, Jerry, I'm telling you, you're
Okay,
going.
so you've been on DeVito.
I've been on
Okay,
DeVito. So my brother was
okay.
like, yo, this dude in Atlanta, Nigerian guy, pick Jerry, please, I'm begging you. My sister will call me. My sister does music too, Gloria Dua. She's like, yo, Jerry, Afrobeats is lit. So I was like, I was at that point in my life where I could have completely turned my back on the culture and but I was like, nah, this is lit. I was like, this is lit. So I love DeVito. DeVito's my OG.
Yes.
I love DeVito. I've been rocking with his music for a while. I've been supporting him for a while. So all my teammates in the locker room, they're like, Jerry, play me that song you played last time. Oh, what's the name of that song? Oh, so it's like I'm always like constantly introducing. They're like, man, I'll never forget you for putting me on that
Just feel like a
Afrobeat
personal
song.
pioneer. Right?
The personal,
Afrobeat, right?
and people
Exactly.
never forget the first person that put them on
That's
something.
true. No, that's true. I love Afrobeat. Yes. Okay. So who's headlining the Super Bowl? What artist is it? I think I already know who you're gonna choose, but who is it?
I mean, Burna Boy is on a roll right now.
He really
I would
is.
love to see. I think the one thing I respect. I was thinking about this the other day. The reason why Afrobeats is so big right now is because there's so many artists individually doing their thing and making
true.
good music, and I think that's part of the uniqueness of it. I think there's going to be a time where all of them will come together and collaborate. And I
hope
think
so.
a Super Bowl would be
Just
like
Afrobeat Super Bowl.
Afrobeats, Wizkid,
Y'all heard it
Grandma.
here first.
You know what I'm saying?
Right,
Burna.
right.
That would go.
Ari Styles. Don't forget the ladies.
That would go. That would go crazy for sure.
Yes.
Miss Celestial. That would go crazy for
Yes.
sure. Yup.
Yes. Okay. Yes, you just got me real excited because I would love an Afrobeat. An Afrobeat halftime show. Y'all heard it here first. Okay. Do you think that American football will be used as an economic engineer in Africa? Like, do you feel like that there'll be a day, like just like how Afrobeat is right now? Do you feel like we'll have an African NFL?
That's tough because football, which is what the world knows,
Right.
is king because it's a backyard game. You can. I remember growing up in Nigeria, we'll play with like oranges.
Oh my God, my dad tells that story.
Right?
Oranges playing football. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, you play with anything that's round. You put a string together. Sometimes we play with a bottle. So just because of how simple it is, it was easy for kids to get into it. Football just requires a lot of moving pieces, and I think that's the hurdle to come over when you can get equipment and things like that. So I would say it might be easier to push other sports than it is to push football. That would be my answer.
Okay.
Yeah.
So moving on, outside of football, you told us about your school, and I want to personally say thank you, for your contribution to Africa because that is amazing. But outside of the school, are there any other ventures, any other hobbies that we may not know of that you would like to share?
Definitely I love traveling.
Okay.
So that's probably my biggest hobby. Once I opened that box, I was like, yo, I got to keep doing this
Right.
more often. It just changes my mindset. I've been to Ghana about 4 times in the last year. Been to Zanzibar. Just kind of going around Africa is like, traveling through Africa is like the ultimate sport, in my opinion, because you're seeing cultures from 100, 200 years ago, 300. So I'm constantly being reintroduced to like, oh, so this is how my people used to be back in those days. It's like kind of looking at yourself in the mirror and connecting that way. So I love, those types of trips as opposed to going to, like, I've been to Dubai, been to Paris, been to Ibiza, been to Barcelona. I've been everywhere. Everything aesthetically, everything looks great, but just that soul connection, that ability to just get some real peace. I definitely find it traveling in Africa. And I would say every Black person
I say that all the time.
should definitely like participate in that sport. Go to a Black country. You start with Jamaica, but make your way to Africa. Go to Ghana. Like it's the most healing you can do for your soul. Me I'm what you call a lifetime journeyman. I've never lived in one place for more than 8 years of my life. So I'm 30 years old.
Okay, me and you both, actually.
Exactly.
All right, travel.
Exactly. But there's always a need for home.
Yes.
So to have no sense of home, you always have a need for home.
That's true.
I would never compare my plight to the African American plight as far as being disconnected from the roots.
Right.
But I will say that I myself have to make an effort to reconnect, to return and reconnect to who I am as a person and not lose that identity.
Yeah, I love that you said healing because I resonate with that. I find going to Africa as a Black person is so healing. So we're wrapping it up pretty much. This has just been a great interview, but I do want to ask you, what are your plans for the future? Like, what do you see yourself doing? Of course, we have traveling, we have your school, so we have so many things. But after you leave the NFL, what do you hope for?
I definitely see myself doing things to change the world, building a workforce through my school, having seen other people benefit from my success. The ultimate satisfaction for me, being able to enlighten people, encourage younger people, and kind of give them an idea of what the reality of success. Everybody thinks being in the NFL, jewelry and cars and, all these things. But the reality for me is my success was only to help the people around me, to help my parents, my family. It was never anything self-motivated. And ultimately, I was blessed because of that. In the locker room, I was that guy that everybody came to confide in and talk to and everybody felt comfortable with because they knew I wasn't just out here, after snaking people trying to get money and to get money and money's my motivation type thing. I was like, look, hard work is my motivation. My family's my motivation. My people in Africa, my extended family in Africa, my grandma, my cousins, living on, less than $20 a month. That's my motivation. Right. So when I'm there, that's kind of like my mindset. That's what I want to give back to the world. And going forward, that's what I intend to do in any business venture, any philanthropic venture. Anytime I bring heads together, we'll make sure that we're helping other people.
Amen to that. Well, you've remotivated me today. I'm sure you've remotivated our audience. I want to thank you so much for coming, but I still have one more question. Who do you think we should have next here on Afro Ballers?
Ooh, this is a good one.
Yes.
I like Giannis a lot. I love the fact that he's like himself. This is why I like Giannis.
Okay.
He's entirely himself. He's Europe. He grew up in Europe, grew up in Greece. So kind of like that Kobe mentality, like I'm always going to be an outsider wherever I go, right? Kobe grew up in Europe, then he moved to the US. So when you're on the field competing, there's things that your opponents can say and do that wouldn't even bother you because you're always going to be locked in. So even being African, like I could walk into the room and I won't speak to nobody. And then I go out on the field and they're like, this dude's crazy. You know what I'm saying? Because nobody knows what to expect from you. So Giannis is kind of like he's intrinsically himself and he goes out there and dominates and people say whatever they want about him. He doesn't care. Like he's that type of guy. So I would love to see him on the show. I think he's a great personality.
Thank you guys for tuning into this episode of Afro Ballers. Make sure you follow everyone tagged below and tune in for our next episode. Good night.